Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has given us unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure or admire an old one. What will we find today? Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
One thing about teaching Sunday school that I love is that I learn way more in preparing to teach than I do studying the Bible on my own or even with a group. So when I get an opportunity to teach, I dive in. Last month, I got to teach a Sunday school lesson on Acts. Of course, I've studied Acts multiple times, and you hear a podcast each week on things I've learned from those studies. But each time, God impresses something different on me. So of course, I have to share. In Acts 9:5, I realized something about Paul, who was named Saul. We mostly know Paul as a zealous preacher and missionary, sharing the gospel all around the ancient world. But before that, he directed his zeal to persecuting Christians, or followers of the way, as they called themselves at that point. Oddly enough, even then, God used Saul to spread the gospel. His intense persecution of the Jerusalem church caused Christians to disperse, taking the gospel with them, beginning to fulfill Jesus' promise from Acts 1:8 that they would be his witnesses to the ends of the earth. We don't know how involved Saul was in the stoning of Stephen in chapter 7, but he could have instigated the whole thing. In Acts 8:1, it says Saul was consenting to his death, using a word which meant Stephen's death brought Saul pleasure. Then in Acts 9:1, we see Saul breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord. With every breath, his mission was to eradicate this new, what he considered heretical belief. Back in John 16:2, Jesus told his followers, "The time is coming when whoever kills you will think that he offers God service." Saul thought he was on God's side until his encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus. A bright light drove him to his knees. Immediately he knew that this was God. Only a higher power than himself could do this. Now, usually in the Bible, when someone encountered the Lord or even an angel, God would begin with a reassurance of, "Do not be afraid." But Saul could have guessed that he was in trouble because he didn't get that. He got an accusation instead. "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" Of course, in his mind, Saul hadn't been persecuting God. He'd been eradicating heretics like the scriptures prescribed. So he asked, "Who are you, Lord?" The answer turned Saul's world upside down. "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting." You can almost hear the wheels turning in Saul's mind, pieces of the puzzle starting to come together as Saul realized he was on the wrong side. Likely his teacher Gamaliel's comment rang through his mind. If this plan or this work is from man, it will come to nothing. But if it is of God, you cannot overthrow it, lest you even be found to be fighting against God. Immediately and obediently, Saul, wanting to be on God's side, replied, "Lord, what do you want me to do?" Jesus directed him to go to Damascus and await instructions. He gave him 3 days to process what had happened. This encounter was a huge turning point for Saul. He went from persecutor to persecuted. God used his testimony to change lives the world over. He went from 100% against Jesus, every breath a mission against Jesus' followers, to 100% for him, on mission to spread the gospel. Are we that passionate about what we believe? We're convinced the gospel is true, but do we give it our 100%? How do we need to let God change our hearts for us to do that? What would that passion look like in your life?
You can contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. We'd love to hear the treasures God has given you through His Word. You can listen to other episodes on our website, which you can find in the description below. Thank you for listening, and remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.